friends, Jamie here. Welcome to Satellite Stories, where we interview those who have encountered Jesus through video games and nerd culture. We're a part of the LTN Podcast Network, and today we're going to hear another story.
My beautiful, beautiful bride. Look at that smile. Oh man,
here we are.
We get to just talk for like 3 hours or something. We'll see how it goes. No, I know happens. You're not. What's that?
I said that never happens.
That never happens. Hey, you know what? Well, as long as
not right now. As long as our kids are not here.
Yeah, no kidding.
Uninterrupted.
Babe, this is exciting. This is cool. You know, we've been, at least with our friends here locally, talked about the idea of a podcast for a long time, of us doing a podcast together, and we didn't want to do it just to do it. And then we found out, let's do satellite stories. And then also, hey, Jess, you kind of have a satellite story of your own.
I've also never been on a podcast, so this is a first.
Never been on a podcast. Wow.
No, I'm not that interesting.
Okay, but if that is okay, first of all, that's not
I don't have
true
that many cool things to talk about.
That is not true. And your ratio of number of podcasts you've listened to number of podcasts you've been on.
Right. I didn't say I've never listened to a podcast. I said I've never been on a podcast.
So give us an idea. How often do you listen to podcasts?
Well, now that I have young kids at home, not as often as I used to, but I used to like every day on my way to work, on my way home. That's what I do in the car. So. Yeah.
When you do dishes, when you kind of always just have like an earbud in and
kids go to bed, I'd listen to a podcast. Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
Well,
so now it's maybe more like once a week, but
yeah, I think you listen to like a lot of clips on like TikTok and on Instagram and stuff. I hear you like
well, and I've just like
a clip from a podcast.
The amount of time I have to listen to a podcast is so much shorter, so I have to be very picky. So there's like one podcast I love to listen to. So
it's called Satellite Stories.
For that one.
No. Oh wait, what podcast is it?
Jackie Hill Perry and her husband.
Yeah, that's so good. What's it called?
It's called With the Perrys. So
cool. With the Perrys.
Great.
Nice little plug. Yeah, that's your go-to podcast.
So look it up. It's good.
We'll do. My wife listens to it. So here we are. This podcast, Satellite Stories, is all about finding stories where video games, Jesus, and an individual intersect. And because you're my wife, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be on the podcast. It's like, well, do I actually have a satellite story? I'm like, duh. And this is where my heart immediately went, and where my mind went was, I think you being the wife of somebody who runs a video game ministry, the wife of a youth pastor who has kids playing playing video games in his house all the time, like just kind of by proxy. I was like, of course you have a satellite story, but we didn't really want to make it about other people's stories. So my observation from the beginning was your heart of availability and hospitality for these young gamers. It was the intersecting point for a lot of people's satellite stories, like where individuals that are in our ministry today, like years ago when we first met them, or even newer students recently, their satellite stories where they experienced Jesus, video games, and their life-changing experience. You were like at the intersecting point. You were at that. You're part of their satellite stories.
Yeah, it's really cool. I feel like I've seen a lot of cool satellite stories, and a lot of the stories that I've heard so far on the podcast, it's like I got a front row seat at that. So yeah, I feel like I got to see a lot of the stories, but I'm like, those aren't my stories to share. You know, if I was sharing my perspective of them, sure, but I don't want to steal other people's stories because I know they may come on here someday. So
I love that. I love the heart behind that. So I guess that even got us talking like, okay, well, there's a lot of cool ways in which you have seen video games and the gospel impact someone's life. But it got us going, wow, what is your personal satellite story? And let's go ahead and take a little stroll down memory lane. Cute little Jessica Joy Adams at the time, hanging out as
my real name.
That's right. These people got to know.
No gamer tags here.
No Mrs. Ziefels, for those in Discord. But tell us about just little Jess Joy. What was it like? What was your childhood like? And specifically in terms of video game, were video games a part of your family? It wasn't like mine, certainly, where we played Diablo 2 at the age of 7. But what was it like for you?
Yeah. We had a GameCube growing up. So I have a younger sister. It's 2 years younger. I don't know if that was why we didn't play video games. I didn't have brothers. Not to say only guys play, but yeah, my sister and I, it just wasn't like a huge part of our lives growing up. My parents are not gamers. However, we got a GameCube. We had gone to like a resale video game store and got a GameCube and would go to garage sales and get new games. And
That's
I also
so
had a
your
Game
dad.
Boy.
That is so your dad.
I know. I had a Game Boy, the lime green little, like, man, that thing was cool. And then I had upgraded to like,
you knew.
I upgraded to the Nintendo DS, the one that like opened up, like the flip one. Yep. I had a navy one. And so my sister and I would play on the GameCube. Sometimes we'd play like a lot of Disney games. I remember like there was a Haunted Mansion game. I remember like Beauty and the Beast. And then we discovered Pikmin.
It's getting a little hot in here. Just gaming.
We discovered Pikmin. I think we got that at one of the like video game resale stores, and I just thought it was adorable. Like just picking them, and they had little flowers on their heads, and they'd follow you around. And
you played some of that with me, right? Like
yeah. I've played it now too. And then but it wasn't like a huge part of our lives. But like road trips, we'd always bring our little Game Boys, and one of my best friends, Crystal, also had a Game Boy. So we would trade games. We'd trade all the Disney games, and we'd get stuck on the same levels. And, Beauty and the Beast, like Gaston, he was really hard. Couldn't ever beat him. Lion King,
Gaston.
Aladdin. I remember we had like a Finding Nemo. I don't know. We just played a lot of like Disney games, I think, because like we love Disney. So like, there's a game about this. Yeah. So dabbled in games a little bit. And then I remember when I was in high school, I hadn't like touched my Game Boy or all those games in a long time. Had them in a bag in my room, and I gave them to a boyfriend at the time. And then he became an ex-boyfriend. And never again have I seen those games or that Game Boy.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a tragedy. Guy. I know.
That guy. Do I know that guy?
You do know that guy. We're not dropping names. That was a long time ago. I'm sure
was it Gaston?
Yeah. So it wasn't a huge part of my life, but as a kid, it was fun to dabble in video games.
Now, Jesus was a part of your life, big young life, upbringing, born in South Africa while your parents were missionaries. A lot of cool stories there. But did you ever foresee like video games somehow being a part of your spiritual journey with Christ? Were they ever connected at all? Or was it like completely detached?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to get into, a little bit about what I had pictured my future would be, was I always pictured I'd marry someone in ministry. Like, I always thought I would marry someone that worked with youth. And so here we are. But video games, no. I think I just kind of assumed like maybe I'd marry someone that did Young Life just because that was what I grew up in. But yeah, never video games. But the Lord works in mysterious ways, and here we are.
Amazing ways.
Better than I could have ever imagined.
Okay. So let's go now to continue in your satellite journey, your satellite story. You have this Game Boy, you give it to this ex-boyfriend, whatever, buy video games. Suddenly you meet me, and I am a gamer. What are some things you remember about like understanding like, okay, this guy's serious about video games? Like what are some, I have a couple that I think of, but I'm curious what you go to.
Well, I think when we first met, so we dated long distance for people that don't know. So there were some things about you that I didn't maybe realize to their full capacity until we, lived in the same town and got married. Like, so all that to say, like, I don't think I realized how much of a gamer you were when we first met. But because we were long distance, it was a fun way to like connect and hang out. Was like, hey, let's hop on Minecraft together. So one of your friends that lives here in town, remember Justin Butler, came over and brought me an Xbox and got it all set up so you and I could play games, 400 miles away from each other, which that was kind of cool. It was like, wow, we could do something
like a
together.
glass house or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And you built my dog fun. Like floating in the air or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. So it was kind of like, okay, he likes gaming. Like this is a way we can hang out. But I don't think I realized how much of a gamer you were until we
tried League of Legends one time.
I did try League. That was traumatizing, and I will never try it again. No, I was just like, wow, this is like not casual. These people are not nice. Why would anybody want to be around any of these people? Like, I feel awful about myself. I'm not playing that game again. So that was the first and last time I ever played League. So.
Okay, my memory. No, yeah, you dab a little bit, but. One of my first memories of us gaming, of course, League of Legends and Minecraft, but I remember when you moved to Idaho, I was debating on whether or not I was going to get an Xbox One. And I remember one time you wheeled up and you said you had something in the back of your car, and I opened it up and there was an Xbox One in your car. And I was like, what? And that was around when Project Spark had come out. And if you don't know what Project Spark is, guys, just go look it up. It was basically a game development platform on Xbox and PC that was amazing. And I spent a lot of time on Project Spark. And you worked day shift and I worked night shift. So I would sit at your house at night. You would be sleeping and I would be at your house. People were like, why is Jamie at his girlfriend's house? Like, hey, we behaved ourselves. We waited till marriage. I'm telling you right now, we did. We're good Christian kids. I wasn't at her house because I wanted, to do anything other than play Project Spark.
You weren't even there.
Oh, sorry. Well, so what would happen is at night I would work, but then I would come to your house on nights where I wasn't working. My sleep schedule was, that's true. My sleep schedule was such that like during the night I was awake and you would be sleeping. So on nights where I didn't work, I would just be at your house playing that game. And then I'd like fall asleep on your couch when you were at work. It's like Jamie doesn't ever leave that place.
Yeah, you'd be there all day.
Yeah. So I remember that. And I remember thinking, wow, she like doesn't really understand the gaming world, but wants to support me in that. And that's also around the same time that we did like some board games and video game stuff for the church that we were part of, Abundant Life, the church I grew up in. My dad's a pastor there. Go Abundant Life. I'm at Idaho, and we had like our first group of youth kids, and boy, that's crazy to think about because we have all these youth kids here now that are like adults. They're in our homes, they hang out,
but all those kids from Idaho are like married with kids now. Man, they're like old.
We don't see them anymore because they live in Idaho. But yeah, those are like the memories I think of. So now I mean, we're not talking. This isn't Idaho stories. So let's fast forward now from Idaho to Oregon. People that have listened to the previous episodes, they've heard my story. They've heard Satellite Gaming's origin story. What is going on in your head as someone who we've kind of gotten in trouble for this? Tell me a little about this. Someone who we go like, well, Jess isn't really a gamer. What is it like for her to be a part of Satellite Gaming? We've kind of pushed the brakes on saying Jess isn't a gamer. And I want to hear a little bit about that. Like, what was it like for you realizing you might be a gamer? And what was it realizing when God called us as a family to ministry? It was video game ministry. Like, if I were you, I'd be like really second guessing what's happening in my life right now. But let's hear that from your heart, because I think that is your satellite story. That just maybe you think differently, but I think this is where it really begins.
About the comments about not being a gamer.
Just maybe all of that. The whole season of like, wow, I'm married to a guy running a gaming ministry, but by call and mission in our family, like you're also running a gaming ministry, right? Like as a
I think we have to I think we have to back up a little bit because we talked about you and I dating and playing games together, and then when we got married, that was when I realized like, oh, this guy like really likes video games. Like he plays a lot of video games.
No kids.
No kids. Yeah. Had a lot of that freedom. And you and I actually
You can call me out here
started.
if you need to. It's okay. You don't need to be soft. You
Don't
can-
need to.
Okay.
You and I actually started streaming video games together,
Yes.
and on Twitch. And we didn't have kids. We'd work, and at night that was kind of a way that we would hang out. And I think for me, it was a way that I could tap into your world a little bit because at the time I would say I really was not a gamer. I think now to say that is a little bit untruthful, which I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Cool.
But at the time it was like, I'm really not a gamer, but like I see how important this is to my husband, and I see how much he loves these games. And also you would always say like you loved playing games with me and like watching me play games. And so I think for me, it was just a way that I felt like God had called me to love you and like love our marriage and like prioritize us. Was like, I'm gonna play games with Jamie. And so we played a lot of different games. I mean, we bounced around a lot. I don't know that we ever really finished a game because I would probably get bored with it before that happened. But I had a lot of friends that would be like, "Oh, you're like playing video games, you're like streaming, so like you're a gamer." And I didn't know you like to play video games. My response was always like, "Well, I really don't love playing video games, but it's a way
Just
that I can
really
love my
husband.
And so I think that like for me it was, and not to like boast on myself, but like it was just a very selfless thing and like a sacrificial thing. There were times where I was like, I really don't want to go stream video games. Like it's hard for me to sit still and do that. But I think God really laid it on my heart that like this is a way that I can love my husband and like really like, again, like just tap into something he loves and that world.
Yeah.
And then, we streamed for like on and off for a few years. And I think through that, I found that there were parts of gaming and like the gaming community that I loved. Like I love the people. When we would stream video games, I remember like we'd be like talking to people on Twitch and I'd like stop playing the game and I'd just be talking and Jamie'd like hit me and be like, you gotta play the game.
Play
like,
the game.
You can't just sit here and talk to people. Or he'd like, nudge me and I'm like, oh, sorry. Like
there were times where I go to take the controller.
Sitting there. Yeah.
I go to take the controller. You'd be like, no, I'm playing. And I'm thinking,
but you're
no,
not.
You are not.
And so I think it was like, I realized that like, the video games really can be a tool because we made a lot of really cool friendships in streaming and playing video games. It was fun. But again, to me, like, I don't know that I like loved the game. I wasn't like, oh, I got to get on tonight to play that game. It was like, I want to get on and hang out with my friends.
And you're getting exposed right now. Okay. You like horror movies. I think you're a pretty big fan of like the horror genre. So playing horror video games, like I think that really,
that is like another level. Like I could only handle so much of that.
But it was so fun.
This is a little harder.
Until Dawn though. Until Dawn, like I feel like that was a good balance.
I feel like that was probably the only game we did finish. Yeah.
A lot of people died that probably didn't have to, but it was fun. That was great.
I can't remember which buttons are which, and when you put me on, when I have to hit those buttons on a certain time, I can't. It just doesn't happen, and people die. So sorry.
That's so funny. I love that.
Yeah, and then I think like not only like finding that like I liked the community and the people. It was like, okay, I found some games I really did like. I like the cozy games, and Jamie got me a Switch years later, a Switch Lite, and it was like, okay, this is kind of fun. Like, I get down on some Disney Dreamlight Valley. I love that game. It's relaxing. And
you played a bit of that when you were pregnant, right?
Played a lot. When I realized you could check the like hours that you've played, I was like, oh my gosh. And I think that's when David and I it was probably close to like 200 hours, which for me is a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe for other people, it's like, that's like a weekend. No shade, but that's a lot for me. Yeah. But I think that was when the conversation with David and I started, where he was like, Jess, you have to stop saying you are not a gamer. And he was like, we also have to stop saying that, because like you are a gamer, like you are in this world. You love this community. And so you got to stop saying you're not a gamer. So that's where I feel like it is kind of unfair, even though I don't like, yes, I don't play a lot of video games week to week, day to day. It probably is pretty unfair for me to say I'm not a gamer because, like, I know how to use Discord. I can, like, hang with most of the conversations about games. I know what new games have come out. I could probably understand the type of game, so I think David probably is right in that I need to stop saying, and we need to stop saying, Jess is not a gamer. Jess doesn't have a lot of time to play games right now, but I probably am a little bit of a gamer.
Yeah. We charged up your Switch the other day so you could play Dreamlight Valley. But then by the time it got charged, I don't think you even got to play, did you?
I know. I was tired. It was like 10 o'clock and, little kids,
Yeah. Well, it's like
tired.
this. Oh, man. The kids thing is like, it used to be that, like, okay, if I go to sleep at 10 and I got to wake up at 6, that's 8 hours of sleep. Now, if I go to sleep at 10, I'm rolling the dice that if my kids sleep all night, then I get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
But it could also mean I get 3 hours of sleep.
That's not often that happens.
Not often.
So.
Yeah. It's not often.
Yeah.
No. Well,
yeah.
Now let me. So we're hearing a lot about your personal story, and that's what we want, right? That's why we have Satellite Stories here. But I think a beautiful part of everyone's story is how it intersects with other people's stories. So maybe talk about as we. And I love that you backed us up a little bit, because as we transitioned from just live streaming to then really going, holy cow, video games is something the Lord has called us to use as a tool for ministry. Because we had our house full of, like, I think at the most we had was 45 people in our house for youth group. It was very common for there to be 30 plus kids there. Like, that was like a common thing. And we would do youth group once a week in our house. We would do a student leadership meeting once a week in our house. We would do other meetings with different rhythms and stuff. What started happening when you started seeing, like, that playing video games with these kids was resulting in them having satellite stories of their own, that, like, holy cow, Jesus is meeting them where they are because of video games. You can either speak to, like, a specific student or a story. Obviously, we want to have them on here to share their stories sometime, but, like, just maybe talk about, like, where you realize, like, wow, God, you're using me through video game culture to impact people for the gospel. What was happening in your mind when you started seeing that?
Yeah. I think, like, the first time I started really seeing it was when we had an after school club at the high school that I worked at. And we weren't really, like, sure what to expect. Like, that school hadn't had a video game club before. And it was kind of like, well, we'll try, and I was new at the school. But we started it, and just, like, all these kids just came. And it was just so cool to, like, see them rally, like 50 kids in the commons, just, like, rallying, and then seeing, like, there's kids playing, but then there's kids behind them, like, cheering them on. And it was just like,
teachers,
wow,
principals,
and then teachers. And it was just, I think for me, it was like, wow, it's really cool that I get to be a part of this, not necessarily, like, sitting and playing games with kids, but, like, I got to be a part of, like, coordinating this and, like, making a space for these kids to just, like, have fun and just, like, the hype, like. So it was just really cool to just have a part in it, even though I am or am not a gamer. I'm not playing the game with them, but, like, hey, like, my role in making this happen is really important. And I think, like, about, like, the way we use our house too for a lot of these kids. I don't often play games when they're at our house. Sometimes we'll play Mario Kart or Smash Bros or something. Yeah, Ninja Turtles, or maybe a board game. But, like, I get to, like, create a space where these kids can come over to our house and make them food, or have them be comfortable, let them sleep on my couch, which then, sometimes turns into, like, well, you're here, so you're going to help me lift this really heavy hay bale that's been sitting on my front porch for a long time. That's like 700 pounds. And then you're going to help me put my Christmas lights up. And, oh, could you help me move furniture? Like,
can you teach me how to make real tacos?
Yeah. Real tacos, not my white girl tacos. But yeah, I just think it's really cool that, like, I get to be a part of this community in the ways that God has gifted me. And I don't have to, like, know how to play a video game really well to do that. Like, I get to be a part of their lives in other ways and kind of support other aspects of their lives while they're playing video games at my house.
I want to go back to something I said from the beginning, and this is what I think is from an outsider watching you, right? Watching your journey with Jesus. I think a big part of your story has been your heart of availability and hospitality for anybody, wherever they are and however they need it, you know? Like when I went to South Africa for leadership training for 3 months, you know, our home was really, that's where we came up with the one of our family values, that heaven at home through hospitality. You know, we want this house to be a place of healing for people spiritually. And I mean, there was a season where we got to do that with a student who lived with us for 9 months during his senior year, right? Like, I mean, we've done that in big ways like that, and in big ways of the amount of people. And sometimes it's as simple as one kid that just needs a place to hang out on a random evening, so he makes tacos with us, or he cooks us. Another one cooks a steak, you know, or helps move a hay bale when I'm out of town, that I probably couldn't move anyway because he's jacked. So, so let me ask, for others that may not be about video games, they may actually not be a gamer at all. You know, you've kind of said like, look, I can't really say I'm not anymore, but for others that maybe wouldn't find themselves as gamers, but they have that heart and that desire to be hospitable, to be available, to love their neighbors. Like what would you say, and how would you encourage them in, man, this is what can happen if you, maybe you don't have to pick up a controller, but if you make yourself available to young gamers or to people that are in nerd culture, what would be your encouragement to those that wouldn't naturally find themselves in that space?
I think, I think God calls us to love one another and love our neighbor as ourselves. And so I think it's just all about just sacrificial love, and just how can you love the people that God's put in your life and the people that God has entrusted you with. How can you love them well? And sometimes that's really sacrificial and selfless. And so it's stepping into their world. And I think a lot of people will be surprised at how like accepting people are, especially like this next generation. Like, I don't think the guys ever for once were like, wow, Jess doesn't play video games. Like, forget that. You know, I think they like embrace the fact that like, I don't know everything about their games and I don't play the games with them. But yeah, so I don't know. I think just to me, it's like, you know, if we say that we are followers of Jesus and that we want to be obedient to the things he's called us to, love people, and you know, whoever that is in your life and in my life, because of you and our ministry, like it's gamers and it's that community of kids, and they're like a really, really special group of kids, and I love them, and I don't take it lightly that God's like entrusted a lot of them to us. And yeah, I just hope that, you know, that they, when they look at me and you and the love we have for them, that they see Jesus, and that they see that like the reason we do this is because God selflessly and unconditionally loves us where we are, despite us, you and I, like our shortcomings and our failures. Like God loves us, and God cares about the things we care about. And so we're just trying to, you know, be a vessel and, you know, love these kids that way. So I don't know. I just think that it's something, you know, I think we say we love people, but like, what does that really look like?
What does that mean? It look like,
yeah. If we just say it, you know, you gotta act
actually
on
do it.
So.
You gotta act on it. So I'm going to take that, as we kind of wrap things up here, I want to take that one step further and say, I just, as a brother in Christ, I just want to affirm you and celebrate you, because I've gotten front row seats to see you step into a world that is totally alien to you, that is totally foreign to you, make yourself available to these young men to a degree that, like, for many of them, you're their only example of what a like biblical mother looks like. You know, it's what a Christ-centered mother looks like, a Christ-centered wife looks like, a Christ-centered like woman of God. For many of them, you're the only example they have of that. I think that's really special, and I'm just really proud of you. How does that make you feel? That it's not just like, it's not just this casual, like, yeah, I love my neighbors. It's like, just like these kids would die for you. Like they really love you. You're like their second mom. For many of them, you're the only motherly figure they have, you know? How does that make you feel?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I feel undeserving. I feel like, I feel very honored. I feel, I don't take it lightly, you know. I think it's a huge, like I said, honor that God's entrusted this ministry and these kids with us. And I said this to one of the kids in our house the other day. It's like anything good you see in me or Jamie, like it's Jesus, it's God.
Amen.
It's not,
Amen.
it's not me. It's God. I'm a weak, broken human, but God, gives me strength and gives me love, and I want to pour that onto these kids, and I want them to have the hope of Jesus that I have, and yeah, so it's a big honor, and I love being a part of this community, and even if I feel like an alien in it sometimes, like it's really fun, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
I appreciate that, babe. I'm glad you made time for this today. I'm glad you make time for these students every week, and I'm glad you make time for me every day, even when it's hard for us to fit it in with all the craziness of life. So I have one more question about these guys. Which one of them is your favorite? I'm kidding. They already know.
No. You ask me that question a lot, and you talk about that a lot.
It's funny. It's just fun. We love them all.
I love them all in different ways, different reasons.
Yeah. So final, just one line of encouragement. Let's see what you got. Pull it out. One line of encouragement.
My one line of encouragement
for those who we already said it a bit, but for those who just don't get gaming, but they want to know, does this work? Does this work?
Yeah.
This gaming ministry, video game ministry. That's what this podcast is for. It's a library of stories that demonstrate to others this works, and it's working.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah.
Does it work?
I mean, yes, it works. Of course it works. I see it in kids' lives all the time. And I think my one-liner of encouragement is just like, love the people in your life well, love them selflessly. I think if Jesus walked the earth today, there'd probably be a lot of things that he doesn't understand that each one of us enjoy or like doing, but I think he would love us no matter what. And yeah, so I don't know, just love people and love them well, even if that means doing something that is a little bit of a sacrifice.
Playing Disney Dreamlight Valley for 200 hours. I'll take one for the team.
Playing League.
That was a sacrifice. Yeah, you were pregnant when you did that too, so there wasn't many options. Well, all right. Well, I love you. I love that you took the opportunity to be on here with me. And what's for lunch?
I don't know, but I hear our baby crying. So thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
I love you so much, babe. I'll make us lunch.
One more thing. Satellite Stories will be streaming on the Glue network. That's GLU. Glue is a streaming platform available on Roku and smart TVs, as well as their Android and iPhone apps. Glue exists to unlock the inspirational value of faith-centric programming, partnering with Christian content creators like Love Thy Nerd and Satellite Stories. If you download the Glue Network app today and search for Love Thy Nerd, you'll find us right there. Thanks for joining us as we grow the library of Satellite Stories. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, Jesus loves you, nerds.